until we achieve a quorum, which I expect to do so very briefly. We have Councilmember Vaidyanathan and Councilmember Chang is pulling up the dais. Great. And so if you would please join us to pledge allegiance to our nation's flag, we'll commence with the meeting. Thanks. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Madam City Clerk, if you would please conduct the roll call.
Councilmember Barry Chang.
Here.
Councilmember Savita Vaidyanathan.
Here.
Mayor Darcy Paul.
I see we have one more council member pulling into the dais.
Councilmember Stephen Sharf.
Here.
Okay.
Sorry I'm late.
Noted that Vice Mayor Rod Sinks is not yet at the dais.
Very good. And I'm here as well. Thank you very much, Kirsten. Okay, so I believe, only have one item on the agenda. It is a study session related to our Citywide Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And I'm very happy to have here from staff Gil Seeds, as well as back from our consultant, MIG, Cindy Mendoza. Is that right? All right, great. Would one of you like to introduce our item? Thanks, Gail.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Paul and council members. We're very happy to be here with you this afternoon to update you on the Citywide Parks and Recreation System Master Plan and invite your continued feedback and direction. Cindy Mendoza, Senior Project Manager with MIG, is here to assist, and she and I will jointly do a presentation and invite your input as we go along and input from the community.
Wonderful. And I note that in our audience, but effectively available for us should we have any questions of the department. We have Christine Hannell from the Parks and Recreation or Parks and Community Services Department. And so I think we have a good representation of our knowledge base in the city. So just to give us a sense of what we're looking at here, about how long are we expecting for the presentation? And I think I'll ask my council to refrain from asking questions until after the presentation. Just for the record, we have allocated approximately 2 hours for the agenda item and for the meeting. If it does tend to go a little bit over, and being in the middle of the afternoon, I think it probably won't, given the fact that we don't have as much of the residential representation out here at this point. But if it does go a little bit over, I'll probably break the meeting around 5 o'clock. So that the council members that have made perhaps some other plans can attend to those. But if we lose quorum, we'll figure that out from there as well. All right, so as a preliminary matter, about how long are we looking at for the presentation? And does that structure work for you to present, have questions, take input from the public, and then come back to the council for more comments?
Yes, and we were intending to invite input at 2 points. Input from the council's clarifying questions, community input, and the council's input and discussion to kind of batch 2 primary topics, if that's acceptable to you and the council
At what
members.
points were those? At what points were those within the presentation schedule? And the timing as well. About how long are we expecting for each of the points of the presentation?
So based on council member requests last time for additional information with regards to the public outreach, we're going to do a brief, maybe 20-minute overview of some outreach findings, take any clarifying questions at that point, but then talk about the Memorial Park concepts, so different potential recommendations for that site. And because that is a specific topic of interest, we're assuming the presentation part of it is only 15-20 minutes, but again, the questions and comments around that may be longer. So at that point, we would invite that feedback before we then break into the third part, which was on project priorities moving forward into recommendations.
And about how long were you planning on the project priorities portion of the presentation?
Again, it's approximately 15-20 minutes. We tried to keep it much shorter this time to give you ample time for conversation and comments.
Okay, it sounds to me like about an hour for presentations all told, and then including our questions, so that the audience can get a sense of when we'll have an opportunity for public input. That would probably be at the very earliest about an hour 15 minutes out from this point. And so we'll take the public input at that point and then bring it back up the dais for any further commentary. And I just want to note for the record that we're now joined by Vice Mayor Sinks, which is actually impeccable timing because I think that can conclude the preliminaries and commence with the substance of the meeting. Alrighty?
Very good.
Thanks.
Is somebody pulling up the presentation for us, or is there?
That's available on the staff side where Ms. Seeds is.
Excuse me.
So is there, who has the control of the computer here?
Presentations. Okay, and let's see, I need to go to the slide, which is right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
So, can I have that?
we're good.
All right, as we just mentioned, there's 3 parts of the meeting. We will go over the outreach results quickly, then talk about Memorial Park concepts for direction, and then talk about some project priorities around the big moves and major projects that we discussed with you last time. The outreach overview that we are giving you today is in direct response to a request from council members last time to get a better understanding of the community's priorities. So very quickly, I want to reiterate that outreach was robust. It occurred over the period of a couple of years. It included a variety of different types of outreach techniques to be able to meet people where they are, as well as get representative samples, as well as invite comments for those people who wouldn't otherwise participate in the planning process. So these included activities such as a citywide survey, intercept events, stakeholder interviews, community and block leader workshops, vision and goals questionnaire, and of course we have guidance from 3 different advisory groups, including you, our special advisory group to this project, as well as the Parks and Recreation Commission, who have provided guidance throughout. There's also been an opportunity for ongoing input via online comments that the city has received from the beginning of the project. So clearly we're not going to highlight results from all of those different activities, but we do want to reiterate that there has been consistently 12 key themes that have emerged. They're shown here. I believe you've seen these before. They're also in your packet. What I want to note here for your benefit is that when MIG identifies key themes from outreach, often it's closer to 5 or 6, maybe 10 at most. What we're finding here is that there is a variety of different things desired and a lot of expectations to be met in terms of the community in Cupertino. So it is everything from investing in nature to investing in larger facilities that really represent the identity and brand of the city. And within that, there are smaller moves, such as investing in play opportunities and teen opportunities as well. So what you see, the 12 collectively rise to the top, but again, that is a larger variety than we see in many communities. We asked some specific questions. This is from the Citywide survey, an online questionnaire, with regards to the opportunities to improve, enhance, or add recreation amenities. These recreation amenities include some smaller elements such as sports fields, athletic fields, playgrounds, and the like. What we found is that the most consistent priorities are often park trails and pathways, which you see in the dark blue being strongly favored and light blue favored, as well as access to nature and natural open areas. When we talked about recreation programs and the types of things that people would like to see enhanced, again, what you see is there are a variety of different types of enhancements desired. Nature and environmental programs, nature interpretation, are the ones that scored most highly in terms of types of programs desired. Again, sticking with that theme of the importance of connecting people to nature. But what I also want to point out here is that many categories scored over 50% of the population wanting to see enhancements in all of these different types of programs. Again, that's emphasis of the variety of different types of recreation opportunities the community would like to see, whether it's through facilities or through programs. When we ask about interest in adding different types of major recreation facilities, again, these are larger than the amenities that we questioned earlier. So things such as multi-use gymnasiums, aquatic centers, performing arts centers. What we found here is that what scored the highest was the year-round aquatic center. But what's interesting is that there are other priorities that are clearly important to note here, including number 2, the Performing Arts Center, which is second from the bottom, as well as number 3, a multi-use gymnasium. What's interesting to us about this question is that some of the elements that were included are smaller elements, such as a gymnasium is typically something that you would put inside a facility of another type. Same thing with a makerspace or incubator hub could be added to a facility of another type. So when we start to look at it that way, what we realize is that the ones that come to the top are year-round aquatics, performing arts, and some type of multi-purpose, multi-use recreation center that addresses a variety of different needs. Recognizing that we did have 12 goal areas that scored very highly or emerged as the top themes from the earlier community outreach, when we went back to the public, we specifically tested those 12 themes to see which ones as a goal for Parks and Recreation would be most important to them. What we found is that number 1, recognizing we're putting together the darker green, which indicated this goal was very important, or the lighter green, that it was somewhat important, is that nature, again, as a goal, emphasizing nature and connections to nature was the number 1 area of emphasis. This is followed by trails, again at number 2, a very consistent theme that we've heard through the community outreach. And then for number 3, there was a sort of a tie between having a variety of different types of recreation opportunities and improved access to recreation. I believe when we were with you last time, we talked at length about ways to provide parkland to improve access to recreation, and we felt we had solid direction on that. So here we're coming back and looking at some of these other priorities to see where we stand in particular on the major facilities. With that in mind, we received input from different types of events as well. An intercept event which took these interactive display boards where people could use dot stickers to show their priorities out to different events. And in that case, when we asked them about the most desired recreation facilities in the community, again, the year-round aquatic facility rose to the top, but there was a close second between the Performing Arts Center and a multi-use gymnasium. When we asked them about desired recreation programs, special events rose to the top, followed by aquatic programs and nature and environment. Again, nature and environment was the top one in the online questionnaire. When we ask about desired recreation amenities, access to natural open space, trails and pathways being number 1. Again, very consistent across the top. Number 2, though, here was emphasis on playgrounds, sports courts, community gardens, again adding credence to that notion that people desire a greater variety of recreation opportunities in the community. And you can see from some of the other notes on the slide how that variety plays out. Here is a more detailed slide, but we wanted to really draw some information in that we felt responded to your direct questions from last time. This is the Citywide survey that asked people questions about the recreation activities that they or a family member, a member of their household participate in to get a sense of where people were participating most frequently. Not surprising and consistent with the interest in trails, the top recreation activity was walking for pleasure or fitness. The number 2 activity, consistent with a strong desired access to nature, was nature walks and hikes. But number 3 in terms of participation is interesting, because this is where it starts to give us some clues about other types of facilities that may be needed. And number 3 was the cultural events and performing arts, concerts, attending. 4, again, emphasizing trails. 5, special events, so fairs and festivals. Swimming was the highest sport or active recreation activity on the list at number 8. And what you can see is that the findings are broken down so we can get a sense of all respondents and what their top priorities are, which I was just telling you their rankings, but we can also see what's different in terms of priorities for residents only, or families with children, or people under 30 years of age or 18 years of age. We also broke it down into different cultural demographic groups to get a sense of their priorities. So just to go into that in a little more detail, in particular, given the demographics of this community and the respondents that we had through earlier outreach activities, there was a question raised with regards to diverse cultural groups and their priorities. What's interesting to see as we break this down is that priorities are pretty similar. Again, trail activities score very highly. Access to nature is still very important. What we also find is that cultural events and performing arts are clearly a priority. Among Asian Chinese members of the community, there are a variety of different activities, though, that scored with more than 40% of respondents showing participation in these activities. It shows an interest, again, in a variety of different types of recreation. Among Asian Indians, one of the outliers that we see is definitely a priority there, one of their top priorities, including swimming, as well as, I believe that's jogging, running, if I'm lining that up correctly. And with that, it gives us a sense of there's a slightly different interest between different groups. And then if you see at the bottom where we pulled forward some findings that were more than 20% of the population responding favorably to those, we see an emphasis on basketball that doesn't really show up otherwise. It really appears among Asian Indians as well as people under 30 years of age. And so you start to see that some of the priorities stay consistent, but there are some different things that emerge when we start to talk about needs of youth, for example, or needs of specific demographics. So things like badminton become part of the conversation, as well as soccer and even dancing, or even, as an earlier slide showed, musical performance. Yeah. To go back to that, the bottom line, number 20, what you'll see is that playing a musical instrument is super high amongst the population under 30 years of age. Again, giving credence to the need for some type of a performing arts or practice space to be able to encourage those types of activities. Because the youth input is so important to this conversation and their needs were called out as one of the key themes that we needed to address, we also wanted to respond specifically on what the Teen Commission had indicated to us. They definitely want youth interests taken into consideration in selecting new facilities, but noted things such as sports are important. Aquatic facility is desirable. The teen and makerspace would be something that would be very interesting, but a teen center needs to be thought of differently than it has in the past. And I think we had that conversation strongly with you all last time, so I won't reiterate that, but again, looking differently at these opportunities. They called out that the sports center really needs a full-size gym and that throughout the system more basketball courts are lacking. Again, consistent with what we just saw in the survey in terms of basketball spiking among younger adults. They also called out needs for indoor badminton. Because of the different concepts and a variety of outreach comments that we heard through the preliminary outreach activities, once we identified what some of these major desires are for facilities, we talked to you last time and called them the big moves, the different major types of recommendations or investments that the city could make in the future. We wanted to test more specifically, in other words, go back to the public and say, hey, what do you guys think about this now that we have identified some top key features? What do you think? So we had a special advisory group meeting as well as a public workshop hosted by the Parks and Recreation Commission. We're going to share those findings with you tonight because they are brand new. But what I want to caution is that attendance there tells us that these findings are not representative. So even for our advisory group, we didn't have our full panel of advisory group members that night, but again had a strong discussion with our 8 attendees who were there. For the community workshop, we had approximately 26. We had a few people come in late, so 28 to 30 people at the workshop. but the majority of them were mature Caucasian residents who had been longtime residents of the community. So over 50% were over the age of 65. So the priorities that we're sharing with you here, we recognize are not representative of the demographics of your community overall. At this workshop, we wanted to get some guidance on, again, those things that we called big moves, which are the larger investments, as well as the most important large facilities. And then we tested through an interactive polling device, got instant feedback with regards to some smaller elements, such as athletic facilities, fields, courts, and desired types of green spaces. And what we found is that, again, people had strong desire to see a variety of different types of recreation activities. That of the most important big moves, there was some interest in all of the different concepts that we tested. The most important large facilities, depending on which group we were talking to, was the Performing Arts Center or the Recreation Center, with strong interest in the Tech Center Makerspace as well as the Aquatics facility. So again, kind of across the board, given that the group there we realized wasn't representative. When we asked them about the most important athletic facilities, certainly there was interest in more basketball courts. When we ask about desired types of green spaces, here is where we saw something that was almost unanimous, and that was interest in protecting natural areas and providing native plantings and natural space in parks, and even taking care of riparian corridors. And that was consistent amongst both the advisory group as well as in the community workshop. Following our interactive polling activity that we had, we allowed people to break into different stations and provide specific verbal and written input with regards to a variety of different types of facilities. And again, the comments that we got for each of these were mixed. For example, on the pool, some people were questioning, do we really need this? There are a variety of pools already in Cupertino. Or other people saying, yes, we definitely need this, and it should be an indoor pool, not just an outdoor pool, and it should also include a competitive tank as well as a recreation tank and fitness uses. We saw that kind of mixed input amongst all of these, but again, very strong, consistent support for trails and natural areas.
Sydney, just to give you a sense of the time, we're about maybe 16 and a half minutes in.
Yep.
All right.
And so
Okay,
that
thanks.
is our quick overview of the public outreach. If you have any questions of that, we just wanted to give you that sense that there are mixed comments with regards to trails and nature being top priorities.
Great, thanks very much. Are there any questions from council at this point? Councilmember Sharf?
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, I have about 30 questions. So regarding pools, you know, I think we've kind of let our residents down. We used to have a year-round pool next to the sports center. Now we don't have any public year-round pools. So when you said there's a variety of pools, are you referring to like the YMCA or pools at people's houses, or what do you mean there's a variety of pools?
Yes, when we shared with you some needs assessment results many months ago now, one of the things we noted is that some of the private pools and semi-public pools were taking care of some of the needs for swimming in this community. So it's everything from school facilities to the specific, what is it, a pool and racket club that you have here in Cupertino.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the country club there. So you mentioned protected creeks. Are there any creeks at Memorial Park? I don't recall any.
Not specifically in Memorial Park. The creeks that have been called out have been across the city and
Okay.
often align with
Right, I'm
plan-
thinking more Memorial Park.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, okay. So this is the whole master plan, not
Yeah,
just
the whole thing.
Memorial
Yeah.
Park. Okay. So in terms of basketball, I mean, I know people love basketball, but there's so many places in Cupertino for basketball. Is that something? I mean, I'd rather have basketball than tennis. It doesn't take up much space. But you mentioned there's a lack of basketball space.
To me, that finding suggests not necessarily that we need to have a lot more outdoor basketball courts, but it speaks to the need for an indoor gymnasium. The fact that there is strong participation in basketball, again, suggests that what's lacking in this community is the indoor basketball space.
Right. Yeah, I agree that, I mean, I would personally like to see a gymnasium, sports center, pool all together to kind of reduce the staffing levels so we don't need all separate facilities. And did anyone talk about moving the teen center into that area? I think, did you mention that Memorial Park might not be optimal for the teen center location?
There has been specific studies and conversations with the Teen Commission about what to do with the teen center. There is a sense that the current location is not ideal for teens. It's difficult to get to. Not many people use it. They would like to see it moved elsewhere. Across the nation, the trend is to provide teen space in some type of multi-age recreation center, also a multi-purpose recreation center, so that it gives them a variety of other opportunities.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Any further questions? Vice Mayor Sinks.
Yeah. Do you know what the pool hours for Rancho Rinconada are? Are they all year, or what the pool season is for Rancho Rinconada? They close? Because we've talked about considering whether that could be a public facility. Do we know?
Not clear on the hours, so we're looking to see if somebody can get that information to you. It is open to the public for swimming, however. So even if you do not live within that district, there is an opportunity to swim there.
I mean, I think we floated the idea before that maybe some of our money could go toward relieving the property tax burden that's placed on the folks on that side of the city. So in exchange for making it available as maybe a city facility rather than a membership facility, we would relieve the property tax burden on all those folks and have a real facility for everybody on the east side of town.
I've pulled up the hours here. They're Monday through Friday, 3:30 to 7 p.m.
Yeah, okay, and
And
I'm
then-
sorry, is really the season, right? So
Right.
that's the other thing.
And then the weekends, noon to 3.
I know most of those Cabana Clubs are not year-round. It's
Right.
like April to October, something like that.
I mean, I'm personally interested in understanding whether the considerable investment we've made at Blackberry Farm, if that pool couldn't be converted to, or at least part of it, to full-time use. I mean, a decade ago, we made such a big investment. It's such a beautiful place. I walked past there with my family on Saturday. It was 12:30 in the afternoon. There were 84 people who had paid to enter the pool. And weekends, it's, I think, 8 for Cupertino residents and 10 for non-residents. I was impressed by how lively the place was. It's such a beautiful venue. So I'd like to continue to look at, on the east side, the club there. Is it possible that could be as a city facility, year-round facility, and also at Blackberry Farm?
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot of investment been made. I realize we can recreate it at Memorial Park or someplace else, but I'm just scratching my head thinking, wouldn't we be better off with 2 facilities? If that's not good enough, if that's not enough for some reason, I'd like to understand why. And I'm, maybe it has to do with, if we want to do the super pool Santa Clara style, big swim meet thing, that might be a reason, but I'd want to be testing our residents to see how much of a facility they need. But it just seems to me you have, a couple of pools down at Blackberry Farm. We have the other one. Could we make those year-round?
Okay.
I will also note, one of the priorities here was on, as we went through the list, something that scored fairly high was community gardens. Well, on my walk, I walked through those community gardens. I have to say they're in about the sorriest state I have ever seen in all my years here. Most of the garden area isn't being used. There are thistles growing everywhere, up to 4 feet, 6 feet high. The space that is being taken by gardeners is a small fraction of a plot typically. I think these facilities are sorely, the facility at Blackberry, this is at Rancho Preserve, is sorely underutilized. I don't know what it's going to take to transform those, but I would say, I would like to see some garden space for residents in the city, and I don't think we're managing what we have very well.
Oh, you'll need to turn on
We
the
need
mic,
you
David.
to punch in. We know you're new to the city, but.
Welcome, City Manager Brandt.
Just wanted to let you guys know, in the CIP this year's budget, you approved $1 million item to renovate the community garden. So you should see a dramatic transformation of that facility.
I'm relieved to hear that. I will tell you, I think, if we had maybe smaller plots that people could use as they really used them, we could accommodate more people, because keep hearing from people that they've been on the waiting list for years, and I don't think somebody taking a 20 by 20 or 30 by 30 or whatever it is foot plot and then using 10% of it is okay.
Yeah, we'll pass that information along to the Park and Rec Commission. They're the ones supervising the project. So,
thank you very much.
I do have some add-on to that. Can I interject?
Yeah, I have a couple more
Yeah,
questions.
that,
go ahead.
just on the community gardening. Can we work out with the school? Because I know those elementary school students at some of the school, they have their own plant. They have small pot. Maybe we can work out with some kind of plan with the school district here, and then have them, just designate a certain plot for them, and then they can bring the kids over there to see how it works, and also close to the nature. So that's what I have in mind. Okay, because even in our library here in the middle, they have their school children plant some vegetable there. So I think that would be a good idea to do it. If we can work out some plan and make it work. Because a couple times I walked by there too, some of them doesn't look that big. And then if you talking about the involvement of the community, and you only have designated to certain number of the residents, and that's it. Only very limited. But I would like to get more kids in the special school children to get more involved about the agricultural thing, planting, vegetable, all this. So I think it will be much better use that way.
Okay, great. Further questions from Vice Mayor Sings?
I was just wondering why we were doing the study session at 3 in the afternoon rather than in the evening. I recognize that a lot of people are passionate about this, but we have about 5 folks in the audience. Is there a reason we picked this time to do this?
Staff, was there any particular input as to the timing of this?
Yeah, we worked with city clerk's office and city manager's office to identify windows that would work when staff and the consultant and the council were all available, and we wanted to get this, continue our progress, and there weren't a lot of good dates, and this was the time slot that we understood was the best for all concerned.
yeah. So typically, it's usually scheduling issues that sort of we default to the time where the room is available and all the council members available. So I presume that was how we landed on this time during the day.
Okay, well, I would just note that I bet we'd have a lot more people in here if it was evening.
So, Vice Mayor,
But I also respect that, scheduling is hard, and I know that I also respect that we've done all this outreach. So I find my general comment is I appreciate the summary information we've gotten from residents on all this. And
can I ask Vice Mayor a question?
sure.
You would like to see, maybe if you think this time is not convenient for the resident to participate, maybe we can do another one in the nighttime.
Well, this won't be the last meeting we have on this, right?
Correct.
So, I mean,
okay.
it's not like this is the last chance or any such thing. So it's just an observation that, I think for a meeting where we're providing facilities to the general public, right, that are considered a big benefit. Given that we've observed a lot of passion in the community, I'd love to have, instead of, you know, moms and dads picking up their kids from school at this hour, I'd love to have them here lobbying for the thing that they're most passionate about. You know, it was interesting to me to see last time, I think we determined that there was no place in town for a full-size regulation international cricket field. Did you just drop that from the survey, or it seems to me that you know, there may be a middle ground between the size of what we have here and a full-size regulation field. Did we poll on that, or did we get input about that?
So yes, I believe there was clear direction from you all last time that we didn't need to talk about the international scale cricket field, but that we should continue to look through partnership for a place to have a community-sized cricket field. That will be addressed towards the end of the presentation when we talk about key things to carry forward.
But I didn't see that in your survey either. I noticed that basketball popped out.
Cricket did not test very strongly, again, which could be part of who participated in the survey. I think it is also one of those elements in terms of recreation variety that we would like to add, but as we talked about last time, we don't feel it necessarily should replace any existing use given the size needed for a large cricket field, but instead should be something to add to the system if the opportunity exists to do so.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I will add that the most recent results on cricket in the 2-page attachment E with all the breakouts about do you or members of your family participate in the following. The results on cricket ranged from 0.4 and 0.7% to 3, 5, or 6%. The highest demographic was the under 18-year-olds. There was 8.6%, but it was one of the lower participation items of the approximately 980 people that got to that survey question. Their responses were low.
And finally, I see the big number, so I'll move on. I'll be done with it after this question. But for basketball, yeah, the response was high. I mean, I know in my own kids' experience, Cupertino Hoops is a very popular program, and in the time that they were participating at the least, which wasn't all that long ago, the program filled up within a day or two. If you didn't get your registration in when they called for it, you know, you couldn't get in. So there was much more demand, and it's or at least at that time, was constrained by supply. I wonder if you have any the supply of gymnasiums. I wonder if you have any comment on basketball. I mean, clearly it's really popular, so that might call for us to build a gymnasium to add space to the stock that is really supplied by schools here.
Yeah, I'll also add, we hear informally, very consistently, the interest in having places to play basketball indoor and outdoor. Okay. And one of the comments we've gotten consistently is that there are no full-size outdoor courts in the city that are city-owned and operated, with the exception of the multi-use court at the Sports Center, which is in great demand for the multiple activities that can occur on it. And that we do have hoops in our city parks, but none is a full-size court.
If we look at the popularity of tennis versus basketball, we think about, and I don't know the relative size of a tennis court versus a basketball court, but I'm rather wondering if we should take, for whatever number of courts we're willing to build, think about moving the ratio between basketball and tennis courts in the favor of basketball courts. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that based on Parks and Rec demand, program demand, what you see in the sports center. Any thoughts? For outdoor courts specifically, I guess, which must be less expensive to build and maintain.
Yeah, Christine Hannell, Assistant Director of Recreation and Community Services. I just wanted to add that when the multi-sports court opened at the Sports Center, it was incredibly popular. And part of that reason is it's a lighted facility, which is the other piece here that I think is important. Okay. Teenagers in particular, male boys in high school, were coming from the area, Sunnyvale as well, to use that court. And we don't have any other lit facilities in the city. So it's very popular right now.
But our tennis courts are generally lit, right?
Our tennis courts are also very popular. And we do offer basketball camps and programs at the Sports Center, and those do very well as well.
For the tennis courts we have right around the Sports Center, are they continually occupied?
During prime time, yes.
Okay.
There are downtimes, but unfortunately the downtime is going to occur during the school day.
I see.
Which is when many of the participants that partake in basketball, not all, but many of the high school, college age, would want to utilize it.
All right, so for the courts that are on the north end of Memorial Park, are those lit and are those popular?
Those are popular, and yes, those are lit.
Also?
Yes.
Any other lit tennis courts in the city?
Monte Vista is not lit, right, Gail?
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
So I believe those are the prime ones there at Memorial Park.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Vice Mayor Sinks. Councilmember Vaidyanathan, any questions?
Yes, and two of them are similar on the lines of what Vice Mayor was asking. I would like you to bring up that graphic on cricket, because from what I recollect, there was something which said like 10% wanted it, and there was a big number which showed opposition. It was a graph.
Yes.
It was right in the beginning.
Yep.
So how do we relate these numbers to the other numbers later on in your statistic?
Yep.
It was a bar graph.
Yeah, it was the bar graph. I went past it. You have to get back to back to here. Yeah, okay, one more try.
In the meeting notes, it's on our third
Here we
page,
go.
so I don't know if that, yeah.
Here we go. Yes, the summer 2016 survey, you're quite correct. We asked about athletic fields in general, sports courts, and cricket fields, and whether people strongly favored, were neutral, or opposed. And so the cricket fields had the lowest
Maximum opposition. So is this something that was surveyed in written or in a room of people? Because it's not clear to me, because you've had several intercept events. And you've also had an event in a room with people.
This was a written survey, and it was, again, self-selected participants. There were over 600, close to 700 people that took the survey.
But there's no way to know what the demographics of the people who took the surveys.
We don't have the ethnic results on that survey, but we do have age. We have a little bit of demographic information, but not as robust as last summer's survey. Okay, thank you. That's really important to note, because that's the hidden message behind this. And then coming to the point of the tennis courts, I had a very interesting conversation with someone who said, oh, there aren't enough tennis courts in your city. And I said, why do you say so? She said, my child has no place to play. And then I realized the child she was talking about was an adult. It's her child, yes, but this was an adult, and they were looking for a free tennis court. So I think in our questions, we have to be very specific in what people are really looking for. And then I tried to explain to her, we have plenty of tennis courts. They may not be free, but they have accessibility. And then she understood how the city works. And then again, coming to the question of demand, is it Monday through Friday during school hours is the only time, from what Christine said, is that the only time they are not used? Tennis courts. I have been advised by Sports Center staff that if you want to, if you're a non-member but want to come by and reserve a court and pay for court time, that the only time they consistently have court space available is Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. to noon, and that they are generally at or near capacity at all other times. Okay, that's really good to know. And do we have similar data for the basketball courts? Or do we not have any facility which is on demand and reserved? Yeah, the only one that we would have any information on is that multi-purpose court at the Sports Center, which is well used at the times it's allocated for basketball activities, but it's in demand for the other options as well. Okay. And that court is in very high use from... Thank you.
So my follow-up questions on this is, we have arrangements with our school districts for the use of school facilities which our public works helps to maintain. Has there been any outreach to the school districts in terms of asking them for the use of the pools or their gymnasiums or their basketball courts at the times when the students are not in the school?
I can respond a bit about pools. The pools are available for rent at a couple of the sites during the summertime for a less than 2-month window. It's 6 to 7 weeks, and we do run our summer swim instruction at Cupertino High School. Monte Vista High School could potentially be rented as well, their pool, from what I understand.
But only during the summer?
Excuse me?
Only during the summer break?
Yes, that's what we have explored to date. I don't know if there have been conversations about sharing other spaces, basketball spaces and tennis spaces. Our agreement with the school district allows us to program and run the fields during non-school hours, after hours and weekends, but the agreement does not cover use of their indoor facilities nor their pools. So that would be a separate arrangement, but perhaps Christine could add to that.
So regarding swimming facilities, we are currently at Cupertino High School. At one time, we had 9 weeks that we would be able to utilize that facility, and this year, I believe it's barely 8. It might be 7.5, actually. What's happening is the schools are just having such a demand by their own students and their own programs. Through the years, as you know, the school calendar has shifted. So we used to run summer programs through mid-August, and we no longer can do that because fall sports are typically gearing up. We've also lost some space at some of the high schools for gyms. So we used to run more sports camps, but we don't have the gym space to do so. And in this community, parents really do prefer an indoor facility during the summer. And I think that just stems from overall health and safety with regards to being out in the sun for, those hot periods of time and the overexposure. Yeah. So we have, through the years, we have lost space. We've had some conversations with the high school district about the possibility of working for next summer to reserve some additional pool space, and we're hoping that we can work that out. But right now, it's not confirmed.
But it'll only be for the summer months, not Monday through Friday when school is in session?
Yes, definitely only during the high school.
Okay. Thank you.
Or during the school, or the summer,
the summer break. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. The other question was, you had some slides on the teen commission, and you had got some input from them. Were any surveys sent to the actual teens in the high school, anything through the high school loop or whatever it's called?
We did extra outreach to the teen community. We had an intern assisting us to strive to have higher teen participation in the 2017 summer survey, and we did much better than the previous one. We had a higher percentage, but the most robust information was a survey that the Teen Commission themselves pursued about 2 years ago. They had a very detailed questionnaire about the future of the teen center, and those results were shared with the commission, and they were noted in one of the many attachments to the previous reports that have come forward, and the overall conclusion was about kind of the desirable location for a teen facility.
So the survey was typically largely about the teen center?
That one was really about the teen center, and they had, I believe, over 1,000 participants, but it focused strictly on the teen center.
Was makerspace one of the questions within the teen center, or was that a separate question? Because I saw there was some, on a different graph, I saw there was some interest on incubator/makerspace.
Yes, I don't recall if the Teen Commission survey in 2016 focused on that. It did invite feedback on the kinds of amenities that the teens themselves would like to have. And there were a number of things that were important to them and were noted in the scoping matrix we brought to you in February, the kinds of elements that the teens themselves felt were the most important. And this recent comment was just by a teen commissioner. When we invited their individual and collective input, they felt that a maker space and teen space would be compatible, that they could flourish well together.
Thank you. So I'm envisioning a slightly larger facility with different users within the same facility and easily accessible to them, not like where it currently is, which doesn't seem very accessible. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions for now.
Thank you, Councilmember Vaidyanathan. Councilmember Chang, do you have any questions for this section of the presentation?
I'm very glad you've done a very good survey, and I'm glad to see that the resident majority, quite large majority, like to keep the nature and the environment, and then also the trail, and also glad to see the performing art is still on the top. So see how we can work it out. I know it's not going to be easy, but it's a citywide. See what kind of program we can make it work. So hopefully, they make it this city really attractive and then really enjoyable for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I know that this next section is about Memorial Park specifically, and then we'll take some questions for council with regard to that after that section. I did make a note that approximately an hour after the meeting started, around 3 o'clock, we would hopefully be able to take some commentary from the public. Remind us again what the third section of your presentation is about.
The third section is with regards to establishing priorities among the big moves. So we're going to share with you what we know are the top priorities, going to raise a couple of questions around some of these facilities, and then ask for guidance on how to move forward.
Okay, now this is what I'd like to ask you to do. As part of the end of this presentation, if you could just give us a slide on what you found to be the community's input or your own assessment of what the big moves, the top big moves are. After we take questions from the council, let's go ahead and open it up to the public for commentary. And then after we get those comments, respecting people's times and our own timing, we can bring it back up and you can finish off that third section of the presentation. We'll take some questions regarding that, at which point we can segue directly into more comments from the council. So Councilmember Sharf, you had a comment about
just
that?
a quick question. For some of these sports like tennis and basketball, there seems to be demand for casual use as opposed to times when it's reserved for paid classes or something like that. So have we looked into the difference between usage, just people wanting to go play basketball and tennis versus having to sign up for leagues or pay for instruction like through Lifetime Tennis? Because it seems like the shortage of tennis courts, a big part of it is they're being used so much for revenue instruction. So have you looked at all about maybe shifting some of that, even though we would lose revenue if we did that?
That's an operational decision that the department would need to make with regards to being able to reinvest in the cost of the facilities, facility maintenance and upkeep and the like. So certainly it is ideal to have sufficient court space that you can offer both programmed fee-based court time as well as drop-in play.
Okay, great. I'll take that as an expression of interest as well, that if you're following up, perhaps we can pursue a little more detailed analysis into that in the next presentation session. But without further delay, let's go ahead and talk about Memorial Park and some of the proposed big projects there. And again, just listing out the top recommendations for the follow-on steps in the big projects, and then we'll ask questions, take a public comment, and then finish up that last section.
Okay.
If that works. All right. Thanks very much.
Sure. All right, with regards to Memorial Park, you have in your packet 3 different alternatives. These are not representing recommendations or specific design intent for Memorial Park, but recognizing that this site is your largest and one of your most popular parks, we wanted to look at different opportunities to enhance the park moving forward into the future through the year 2040. So all of the concepts, each of the 3, keep the event space, recognizing this is an important place for community events and that space is not replicated anywhere else in the community, so that had to stay. But also keeping the Quinlan Community Center, Senior Center, Sports Center, Veterans Memorial, as well as the Amphitheater. All concepts also repurpose the inactive pond. There are 3 different concepts being brought before you. One is the naturalized gathering space. I'm going to skip the slide about the existing configuration. I imagine most of you are pretty familiar with Memorial Park at this point. What the naturalized civic gathering space does is it keeps Memorial Park mostly the same. It emphasizes some renovations, such as a renovated playground, the renovated amphitheater, adding a trail through the park, expanding the event lawn, and improving landscaping and tree canopies. Otherwise, it keeps the site the same. That's quite a contrast to the arts and events concept, which instead repurposes the softball field and instead creates a multi-story arts and performance center that also includes the incubator space technology center within it, improved parking, a courtyard that connects that to the rest of the park, that also then connects to the expanded event lawn that has a stronger indoor-outdoor connection to Quinlan across the top of the concept, and then moving down the side relocates a couple of different uses in order to further expand the amphitheater and event spaces at this park. So it keeps a small water feature, it expands the playground area, but it moves it into a different location and improves event staging as well. The third concept instead focuses on active and multi-uses for the site. Again, recognizing that there are several existing anchors to this park, but wanting to connect them more strongly. So in this case, we keep the softball field. We improve up at the top corner the tennis courts, providing a pickleball overlay. The concept also, across the bottom, you will see that there is strong emphasis between and connection between an expanded senior center, an added aquatic facility, an added gymnasium that, while replacing some tennis courts, can include rooftop activities, and then a renovated and improved fitness center. This concept would also redesign the parking lot at Memorial to address some parking needs, and again, leave the emphasis on the event space that is there. The intent with the 3 concepts was just to collect feedback between different opportunities, again, to enhance this site. At the workshop on May 17th and in the advisory group meeting, we asked them what their priorities were. And what we found in most cases is that it was a mix of each of the concepts. The trail loop trail, for example, was a priority for all. For our advisory group, definitely the active and multi-use concept, and in particular the recreation center element of that, rose to the top for them. But in our workshop, there was impressions along the board of some people like the aquatic part of it, some people like the performing arts center concept. A lot of them, again, recognizing the mature audience that were there, like the concept that didn't change anything and really kept it naturalized. So there were, again, a mix of feedback that we received. The info stations gave us a further opportunity to test what people specifically liked and didn't like about each concept. With regards to arts and events, there was strong support for the performing arts, but also some comments that a different site should be considered for that and other partnerships as well. With any major facility, there was a conversation around parking and traffic concerns. Certainly it rose to the top again with the active and multi-use concept, but again there was strong support for the aquatic facility, gym, and sports improvements. For Memorial Park, the naturalized civic gathering concept, there was support for the amount of green space at the park and the added trails. Mixed input on the water features because we didn't specify what those would be, only to say that we would keep some type of water element different from what's there currently. So some mixed feedback, But the Parks and Recreation Commission were clear in terms of their priorities and what they would like to see out of Memorial Park when they reflected on this back on just a few days ago. They preferred the active and multi-use concept, 3 of the 4 commissioners, recognizing that Memorial is the recreation center of the city and that it needs to have a focus on the activity centers connecting the existing facilities that are there. They like the notion of the multi-story structures to be able to expand uses and ability to address some parking and traffic issues. The sense was that it is important to retain and host the event capacity of the site and to make sure we were improving transportation and access. There were lots of individual comments with regards to the different comments. The ones that I want to call forward are the ones that say things such as, we really like the Performing Arts Center, but perhaps a different site would be a better location for it. So simply because they didn't call it forward in their preferred concept for Memorial Park does not mean that they did not want to see it at the city. Again, this was a specific look about what would be best for Memorial Park. With Memorial Park, there was definitely interest in renovating the amphitheater, the event space, being more inclusive in terms of the opportunities that are there, but considering an inclusive play area as something else to occur at a different site. That's a very fast overview of our Memorial Park concepts, knowing that we'd rather hear from you rather than having me talk.
Thank you so much. Are there questions from council with regard to this? Councilmember Scharf?
Sure. I kind of like the idea of the taller multi-use buildings, but along Stevens Creek Boulevard, not up against the northern edge of the park, closer to the residential area. You know, if we did an aquatic center, indoor how do you call it, nanatorium, it's kind of, we're saving that land for something else. So we could do a multi-story building with an indoor pool on the bottom floor. You could have indoor basketball courts. You could even put a makerspace or senior center in there. And I think that's key, because I think it's a lot cheaper to build one larger building than multiple smaller buildings. As to parking, that's a big issue, since parking garages. We were just talking about one at the Library, Joint Powers Authority. It's like $50,000 per parking space to build a parking garage. So, yeah, that's a big issue there. And while I appreciate tennis courts, I did like the idea of maybe using those 8 tennis courts that are up on the the southwest corner. Maybe those could be used for something else. Maybe we could even put some tennis courts up on the roof of somewhere. I've seen that done before.
You mean in the northwest, Stephen?
Right, there's 8 tennis courts that, that are on the
you mean within the
south, right, they're kind of in the southwest part of the sports center. It's
see.
where the pool used to be. They took out the pool and they put in some other
So going over
there.
to Anton along Stevens Creek, you mean?
Yeah, is that Anton there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That little street
Yeah.
that,
So, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I know some hotels put pools on the roof, but I was looking into that. It's really expensive because you have to make the building a lot stronger to support the weight of the pool. Even though that would be kind of cool to have a pool on the roof. Okay, thank you.
Great.
That's it.
Further questions from council? Thanks, Councilmember Scharf. Vice Mayor Sings?
I mean, I have comments too, but I'm sort of wondering if we ought not hear from the public before
Agreed.
we all weigh in. That's.
Are there any questions?
I mean, the last time I did do a little weighing in, so I think maybe I don't have, I may have some questions after the public speaks.
Okay.
But I'd like to
I do have one
them weigh in.
question.
Councilmember Vaidyanathan.
So, continuing with my questions from the previous section, that's what I was looking at, a big space, all-inclusive. Have we done any parking study related to any of the things in Memorial Park, even what has been discussed with the commissioners, where 3 of the 4 agree that we could go vertical?
At this point, there hasn't been any specific parking study, in particular because we haven't defined the scale and types of facilities to include there. As part of the CEQA process, we do have to address traffic impacts. It depends on the type of recommendation that is carried forward with regards to these facilities, because this is intended to feed into a more site-specific master plan that would address in detail those elements.
Okay. And then the second question was the amphitheater. I really like some of the ideas that we heard about the amphitheater to make it more programmable and the seating also so that the families can attend. Any detailed study on that so we know what are we talking in terms of dollars and cents?
I'm not aware of any plans to do a detailed study on the amphitheater at this point, but certainly that would be addressed in the site master plan for Memorial.
But that would depend on the direction given by council. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Vaidyanathan. Councilmember Chang, any questions?
Yes. Do you think indoor pools have that kind of demand? I'm not quite sure because I just joined the Sunnyvale Fremont High School pool. You can buy the pass, and it's used, but it's not packed. Okay. Yeah. So and then also nearby the Memorial Park, across the street from the Stevens Creek, Deandra College, their pool is open. Is also open to the public. If you want to join, especially in the noontime, you can go in and swim. And I used to swim there, but still, it's not a whole bunch of people. So I'm wondering if we spend this kind of money, people like to have the amenity, but are we really using, have a good use of this money here? Okay, so that's my question. And then besides that, you still have, in your plan, you still have couple area with the water elements in there? Knowing what I heard on NPR, this year will be another hottest year we are going to face. Would that be wise to have another water element, because we just waste water with all this water element in there? So that my question to you, do you looking into that? And then if we need it, can we just combine together? I really like what Councilmember Sharp's idea, with multiple story, but not stuck in the neighborhood area, coming out to close to Stevens Creek. I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there are a couple questions there. One about demand of the pool, and one with regard to the parking.
Certainly with regards to the pool, there has been mixed demand for what people would like to see. The strongest comments to date have been for a year-round facility. That doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be indoors. I think there's been stronger discussion around an outdoor pool. But again, there has been some comments that it needs to include a competitive tank as well as a recreational tank. Some comments with regards to things such as lazy rivers and stronger recreation features. So there's a lot that still needs to be answered with regards to the aquatic facility.
And the water features, yeah.
Water features, what we've been discussing to date include water features with some type of interactive element. So it can either be such as a playable creek that meanders through the play area, or something that is a water spray element. If it is something that is decorative, the intent would that it would have to be oriented towards water conservation. The trend is not to provide any type of strictly decorative water elements to date for the reasons that you mentioned.
Okay. Another follow-up question. On the amphitheater, if we have a performing arts center with indoor, do we still need the amphitheater in there, in the Memorial Park? Because currently the one we have is not working, we know that, because there's a walkway in the middle, okay. It's very distracted between the performer on the stage and then between the audience. You have people constantly walking back and forth. It's very distracting for the performer and then also for the audience. So that's why, in my opinion, it's not very attractive. People don't use it that often. Because when you want to see the performance, you want to be really focused, enjoy. You don't want to have any distraction. So my question is, if we have a performing arts center, if this council give a direction which I'm strongly in favor of it, the multiple story and then have a large performing arts center. If we do have that, then do we still need to have outdoor amphitheater?
I'll note that the amphitheater, it was designed many decades ago. It is aging and it is not state-of-the-art, and we understand it warrants a renovation for sure to make it deliver more to our community. It does get pretty consistent use and very enthusiastic use for our concerts in the park, the Summer Shakespeare program, and certainly the festivals. Many of our festivals use the amphitheater as an integral part of what they're doing, and it could be improved quite a bit, probably without even that much effort.
Sure.
Speaking
Don't
to the
get me
design
wrong,
professional,
okay.
but you're saying that perhaps we don't need it at all if we have an indoor space?
Right,
That sounds like
right.
that is your suggestion.
Don't get me wrong, I like that area. I live nearby. I ran to Memorial Park couple loop almost 3-4 times a week, and that's my route. I went up to the redwood tree to the top nearby the fence and coming down. It's pretty, okay. But for the amphitheater, for the performing art purpose, every time I see the activity there, it's just not many people, because it's very distracting when you have people walking in the middle. It's just not well designed. Okay, but that was done way before. Okay, so we understand that. But now, if we're going to do it, if we have a performing arts center, do we really need to consider that? Okay, maybe we don't need it at all. Okay, and maybe make it different way of, preserve those redwood tree and then make it a different setting.
Yes, it could be repurposed.
Yeah.
And water feature, we need something, because even as I'm sitting here, I can see the kids playing in the fountain outside. So something may not that uses too much water, but a little amount of water. It would be great to see something. And of course, I know the concerns about the geese, so maybe no standing water, but some water feature would be great.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilmember Chang and Councilmember Vaidyanathan. I have two brief questions before we open it up to public comment. My first question is in Concept 3. I was wondering if you could pull up that image of your presentation. And my question is, where's the parking located in Concept 3? I wasn't able to locate where that was. And you had specifically mentioned fixing the parking issue. So is there an ability, if anyone's listening from the city channel, can we put this back up on the presentation and get to the presentation page of Concept 3?
Is it showing on your screen?
It's not showing on our screen, no. Okay. Or any of the powers that be out there. Excellent, thank you. Okay. So this is image of concept number 3. Where is the parking located in this?
So there's been a couple of different conversations. One is around some type of a parking structure adjacent to the senior center, because one of the things we heard is a need for parking that is easy for them to access the facility in particular, and then others could use that to move to different parts of the park. There's also been a conversation about either underground parking or potentially including lower levels of parking in a building that then above that had the gymnasium and other features associated with the recreation building. It also calls out improved parking around the Quinlan Community Center as well.
Got it. And with Quinlan, is there any kind of talk about underground parking or structure in Quinlan, or is it just a matter of restructuring the existing parking lots there?
At this point, we haven't looked in detail. Again, it depends on the feedback and what concept is preferred. That will give us the license to look at, in more depth into parking and other elements to address it.
Okay, and then my other question is a very general question. These are very, full range plans. What are the costs? And at what point, if we're not getting those today, do we anticipate, if at all, getting cost estimates for each of these, very broad scale plans?
That is an excellent question, which explains the need to get to the third point of our presentation, because we do want to talk about what you would like to see in terms of costs for different facilities moving forward.
Okay, very good. Are there any follow-on questions at this point? Councilmember Scharf?
One thing I would love to see is some secure indoor bicycle parking. I was at a meeting recently in San Francisco at the MTC, and there was kind of a incident with two of us. They didn't want us to use the indoor parking. They finally let us, and it was just amazing. It's multi-level indoor secure parking, because I think a lot of people are reluctant to use bicycles because they're, even at the library, we've had bicycles stolen here. So I would love to see some kind of secure parking for bicycles. Thank you.
All right, great. We have 3 comment cards from the public now. They're from Shani Kleinhaus, Jennifer Griffin, and Jean Bedord. Welcome, Shani. And per usual, we have 3 minutes per speaker.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. First, I want to thank Gail Seed and Cindy Mendoza for a wonderful outreach effort. I was part of the stakeholder groups and participated in all the meetings. They've always been very civil, respectful, and informative, and I found that to be a very fun experience, nice to participate in. I also went to some of the public meetings, and again, they were extremely well run, so thank you. I think it's important to notice that the thing that floated to the top of what people want is nature, and they want it in their every park. They want to preserve nature, they want to regenerate nature, they want to see nature, and how do we do that is a question that is not easy to answer. Everybody knows how to build something. No, people don't know how to bring nature into an urban environment, and Cupertino actually is in a wonderful situation because there's a boundary of nature and you can pull it in by planting oaks. There are things that can be done in the city to do it in a very coherent way with the city planning all along. So it doesn't only have to be in parks, and that's why it's important that you all pay attention to that, because you can do it many, many ways. That can identify and provide the brand that people want to see. And that's what really did float in every meeting, every age, every group. Everybody put that as one of their highest priority. And maybe it's because they know, they already have some, so they know how wonderful it is. But it's not only in Cupertino. I see the same in San Jose when I participate in their green print effort, and I saw that in the Palo Alto parks and plan. Everybody wants to see nature. And I think I would love to see that you actually respond to that and find ways to provide that, because that's not simple. Like I said, everybody knows how to build a trail. You pave something. And I don't think that's what people mean when they want access to nature. They want a path, not necessarily a paved trail, because bicycles provide you with exercise. Nature is not always compatible with the type of things that we do to provide that access when that is hardscape, concrete, asphalt. And how do you bring that? You bring it by planting, you bring it by creating paths like you have at McClellan Ranch, which people just love, and the people play, the kids play there, and adults walk there, and everybody loves it. So I wrote myself a few small comments. Well, time is kind of up, but that's what I wanted to say. And thank you. This really has been an enjoyable experience.
Thank you, Shani. And if you want to addend any of your comments in written medium, please feel free to provide those to the city clerk as part of the record. Thanks very much. Welcome, Jennifer. And
hi,
Jennifer
I'm Jennifer Griffin, and I've followed this reorganization as it's been proceeding along. I would just say right now with Memorial Park, it is a memorial park. It's a central park. It's open land, and I really think that we should do number one and just leave it alone. It's a park. It now has a memorial in it, but the water feature, I love the ponds, and Apple paid buku bucks to bring recycled water from Sunnyvale down Wolf. We lived through the drama of having the roads ripped up, again the east side and the onslaught for 2 years. So now you've got it up to Stevens Creek. So just bring the recycled water down to Memorial Park, and then you can have all the water features you want. Enough said about that. Let's talk about the east side and Poor Rancho and the Cabana Club. I will tell you right now that that is an elected pool board body. The Cabana Club is a county entity. It is the same thing as Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space entity. I forgot what the word is, I'm sorry, menopause. Same thing as cemeteries. It is a county entity. And since we annexed in 2000, people have been trying to grab the property. The county has tried multiple times to dissolve the pool board and grab the property. I would hate to think that Cupertino would try to do something like that also. Yes, we pay a very small fee, all the residents. There are 6,500. I was looking at it last night. I thought it was 5,000. We are 6,500 strong, Rancho Lori, and that's not even counting the Eichler community. And we have the Cabana Club. It has been there since 1952. My great aunt was an original owner on Barnhart, and I remember going over there when I was a little girl, and the Cabana Club was integral to the whole community. They're not that unusual for that type of construction. Just look around the area. Yes, we pay like about, I think it's $30 a year, all the people in the district. We are a district of the county. And yes, our sewers are owned by Sunnyvale. So yes, Rancho is sort of a horse of a different color, but that's what we are. There is no parking available in that end of Cupertino. If you tried to park the rest of the city there, they would be parking in Barrington Bridge community along the creek, and that is a private neighborhood. As it is now, no one is really supposed to park in there. That is a restricted area. That's where the elementary school used to be. So no, no, no. If you're going to do this, we need to have a big discussion. And as far as I'm concerned, let us keep our Cabana Club. We have gotten no parks from Cupertino, nothing. And I give up. We have 1/2 acre, and that's all we've ever gotten. And Sedgwick, there's a 1 acre there. Why don't we have part of that? Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our last and final speaker card at the moment is from Jean Bedord. Welcome, Jean.
Thank you. My name is Jean Bedord, and I greatly appreciate the presentation that you gave on the master plan and also Memorial Park. I'm here to express my opposition to a new aquatic facility. Yes, I know it shows up high on the wish list, but my concern is something that has not been addressed at all, and that's staffing. I belong to the YMCA. I think it's a great facility. My husband and I both go to an aquatic arthritis class. It happens to be offered 5 days a week. We don't go 5 days. But I notice that at all times there are 2 lifeguards and there's a maintenance person running around making sure that, number one, the chlorine level is the right level and keeping everything working. Swimming facilities are very expensive to maintain. I've talked with the manager of the Rancho Rinconada pool, and he'll tell you the same thing. Things wear out in a couple of years. It's a very difficult environment. I think we need to look at finding out different ways to work with existing aquatic facilities, but it's too expensive for too small a group of people who would benefit from it. And I think you as council people who you were dealing with FTEs last week, you're talking about probably 3 to 4 FTEs for an aquatic facility at the minimum. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. And at this point, we'll take it back up to our dais for the continuation and finalization of the third part of our presentation from our outside consultant and staff. So take it away, Cindy and Gail. Thanks.
Great, thank you. So we want to end this by talking a bit about planning priorities. What you heard earlier through the outreach is that there's a lot of competing demands. Last time we introduced to you what we called the big moves, some major facilities and some other facilities with special considerations. Just real quickly, that addressed everything from new parks to protecting nature, the major facilities listed in front of you on the slide there. as well as some facilities with special consideration. For example, last time we discussed the results of the cricket field study that we alluded to earlier. There are also some new results from an inclusive play area study and with regards to trails that Gail would like to share with you before we proceed.
Yes, we have a consultant team working on an inclusive play area feasibility study, and the first batch of the results went to the Parks and Recreation Commission on Thursday evening. The team evaluated 4 potential locations noted below: Memorial Park, Creekside Park, Jollyman, and Monte Vista Park and Rec Center. Among the screening criteria they used to identify suitable sites were, is there enough space to add such a play area without removing an existing key facility such as a soccer field? And do we have parks that are located on collector or arterial streets so that we wouldn't be bringing traffic from outside our city limits through a neighborhood to access the inclusive play area? They tend to draw regionally. The 4 sites were evaluated. There's a nice report posted that folks can look at. It's on the city website. And among the 4 sites, after discussion and evaluation of the results, the commissioners found that Jollyman Park was the unanimous top choice to examine further for its suitability as an inclusive play area venue. They were interested in both renovation of the northerly existing play area and the southerly existing play area. Both of them face more or less on Stelling Avenue with a parking lot in the middle. They found those to be the highest desirability sites out of the, there were actually 6 possible venues examined, including 2 at Memorial, 2 at Jollyman, 1 at Creekside, and 1 at Monte Vista. So that's it in a snapshot. Based on those results, if there's council concurrence, we'll develop 2 conceptual layouts and associated cost estimates, and we'll bring those forward to the commission and then to the council. Regarding trails, you've heard how important they are to our community, and they've been well addressed in the bicycle transportation plan and the pedestrian transportation plan. The Public Works Department is working actively on pursuing feasibility and implementation of some new trail connections on the Regnart Creek Trail. The feasibility study is underway. There have been public meetings and what they call walk shops, and they're progressing strongly. Same thing on the Sarah Channel, the Junipero-Sarah Channel on the south side of Interstate 280. That potential trail alignment is being examined with a different consultant team and another feasibility study process. There have been several public meetings about that potential trail as well. And what we have been calling the UP Railroad Trail is now also being noted with an additional name as part of the Dianza Trail system. There is a team in place pursuing the feasibility of that trail, which could be over 5 miles long and connect from Sunnyvale and northwards. So those are progressing and in the capable hands of the Public Works Department.
So what this all boils down to is that we are creating our capital projects list, and we are beginning to identify costs for each of those elements. And we have some known priorities in this community. Certainly trails and nature enhancement and protection are 2 that are clear priorities. Taking care of your existing parks has been a clear priority that comes through, but also adding a variety of recreation elements when those parks are refreshed as the current existing facilities and amenities age and are worn. So that has been a clear priority that came through, as well as providing added neighborhood parks in underserved areas if and when opportunities emerge. We had a clear conversation last time with regards to standards and understand that while that is still a priority, that it is opportunity based in terms of identifying ways to meet those needs. As Gail just reported, the inclusive play area has also emerged as a known priority. Beyond that, there are some priorities that, as we agreed last time to keep them on the list and we have further tested, they are still popular and desired amongst residents in this community, but they do require further study before we can define exactly what these facilities would include how much they would cost, where they should be located, because as we just heard from members of our community, not only the aquatic facility, but each of the top 3 mentioned here require a very strong staffing component and an operational subsidy before they can generate any type of profit by bringing in revenue. So it really should be driven by strong business planning. We also know that several of these facilities should be able to incorporate some of the other priorities that we heard from the community, including meeting additional senior needs, as well as for teen space, as well as for the maker space or incubator hub. But some of these facilities are also affected by partnerships. You all have called forward today, opportunities to look to work with others to provide an aquatic facility, for example, considering schools as an option. Also, the Performing and Fine Arts Center could be contingent on a partnership as well, either a public-private partnership or potentially with De Anza College or others. Certainly looking at schools in partners with teen centers was something that we actually discussed in stakeholder interviews earlier in this process as an option as well. And last time you gave us guidance to look at potential partners to have a community scale cricket field, potentially beyond city limits, even if that's what's required. So because of that, we have some unknown elements here as we put together this project list, and unknown in terms of costing. That leads us to a few questions that we'd like for you to give us guidance before we do that. The first one, and this to some extent revolves around Memorial Park, is what does Cupertino want to be known for? And the reason I ask this is because usually when a city is looking at investing substantial, not only funds, but also staffing in a major facility, it does so because not only is it addressing community needs, but it is also part of your identity of what is important and where you want to be in the future. And certainly Memorial Park is kind of the living room of the community, is something that you want to consider in that regard. And then the other question that's here is something that you guys have already raised here tonight. Why is it we're talking about all of these big separate facilities? Should we be considering what many communities do, and that is providing some type of multi-use, multi-purpose community recreation and arts center that includes different elements from each of the things that we described? And would that include an aquatic facility, or do we want to look at aquatics differently? Or is it that we are combining aquatics, gymnasium, fitness, and recreation, and then having a separate performing arts center somewhere else? Those are types of questions that we're not sure we need to answer in this plan. And we want to know in terms of costing whether you would just prefer to have a framework to be able to move forward strongly in evaluating these possibilities further with a range of cost, or whether we need to dial it in further. That is our question to you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. And I assume that concludes the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Is there any desire to kick off the final round of questions? And we'll make this, not that it really makes a delineation between our practice, but we'll make this questions/comments with regard to this final round. And of course, if there are further comments or questions, we can always do another cycle. But Councilmember Scharf, you're indicating a desire to go.
Sure, I'll go first. So with aquatics, I know my daughter was a lifeguard at the JCC, and it's really not full-time employees that are lifeguards. It's almost all hiring young adults to do that job, and unfortunately, they don't pay very well for lifeguard positions. I think it was like $15 an hour. And as a swimming pool owner for the last 20 years, it can be expensive if you don't do it right. If you put in solar panels for the pumps, electricity, if you put in solar water heating, if you plan ahead and do it right, the maintenance costs are not a lot, and it could actually be handled probably by our existing public works, or it could be contracted out to another company to do the maintenance. You can do automatic chlorinators, automatic chemical dispensers, automatic water testing, and robotic pool cleaners. It's just being smart and designing it up front to be as low maintenance as possible. And while it's still not cheap, since that was one of the most requested items, I would hate to see it eliminated. just because we think, oh, it might cost too much on an ongoing basis. I think, yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Would anyone like to go next? Councilmember Vaidyanathan.
I had a question. We are saying aquatics and we are saying swimming pool. Are these two the same, or are we talking international-sized, Olympic-sized pool when we say aquatics?
No, sorry, I turned off my microphone. We're using these terms interchangeably, aquatic facility / swimming pool.
Okay.
Usually an aquatic facility recognizes that there may be a couple of different tanks associated with the swimming pool area.
So there could be more than one?
Indeed.
Okay. And do we know why we closed the one in the sports facility? That was before my time, so does anyone have an answer?
My kids took swimming lessons there. It was an outdoor pool that they had kind of a canvas tent over.
Yeah, I remember the tent.
It was kind of junky, but it was really popular for kids taking swim lessons. I mean, I know, everyone in our neighborhood went there for swim lessons.
I know that. I knew it was very popular.
And so that's why I kind of feel we took away the aquatics year-round.
Why did we do that?
Well, I think because it needed to be rebuilt, and they didn't want to spend the money on it.
You didn't want to spend the money at that facility?
Yes, it needed some repairs, as well as the fact that it was a very, very tiny pool. It was about the size of a backyard pool. So in terms of programming, it was a bit of a challenge. Okay. But yes, it was popular for small groups of children's swim lessons.
Oh, my kid learned there too. So
yeah.
I know, I've been there, and I remember how constricted it was.
Right.
So we are looking for a much larger footprint from what the community is asking. Mm-hmm. Just to understand what the community is asking, a much larger footprint, possibly 2 pools, correct?
Right, I think that's what we're trying to define, right, Cindy? I mean, there's a huge spectrum in terms of aquatic centers, from Olympic-sized pools like what you see in the city of Santa Clara at International Swim Center, and places that are more recreational in nature, where they might have slides and spray pools and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of choices when you're looking at aquatic facilities.
Blackberry Farm has that. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that. And then in terms of the all-inclusive playground, I've been to both that are mentioned in the staff report, and they're both just spectacular. And when you see the kids play there and the look on the face of the parents with special needs kids, it's just the best thing any community could have. Again, the pricing, have we looked into that? I know the footprint from what you're saying, there's one park where it unanimously everybody says, but do we know the...
Yes, moving forward, that's what we will bring forward, is 2 conceptual layouts and the associated costs. That's the next step. And
partnership with any foundations like Magical Bridge?
Yes, the report will identify possible funding sources.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Vaidyanathan. Would anyone like to go next between Councilmember Chang and Vice Mayor Sinks? Councilmember Chang.
Yes. Sometimes, as the elected official, we have to make a decision. Sometimes it's not necessarily popular. We have to do what's the best service the entire city. And then this money, because we all have limited resources. And of course, we would like to be popular in every way we can. I know the pool from the survey is shown on the top, but then look at the reality, really serving to a certain number, not really large number of the population. So that's my concern with that kind of money we spend. And then if we want to have a pool, based on what I know, we do need to have up to the international standard, because then for the kids to play or the training for the competition, if you are not the regular size, it just don't work. Okay, that's my understanding, because it's counting, all this time. So if that's the case, then we probably would need to spend a lot of time, a lot of money for it. Would that be worth it? Because in the meantime, as I say, there's quite a few. Monta Vista has a swimming pool. I believe Cupertino High School has a swimming pool, and then Deanza College has a swimming pool, and Sunnyvale had the public one, and Nimbrook has one. And so it's all nearby. And I'm a swimmer myself, okay? As I say before, I used to take the 5 o'clock in the morning class in the endocrinology. Really, that's the most people one. In the early in the morning. After that, in the noontime one, it don't have that many people use it. So even that is still not in consideration. It's not the large number to serve. And then if you're going to spend this money, I would like to see as an elected official, collectively, what we would like to see this city will be on the culture-wise, on the activity-wise, so people can recognize, oh, there's this concert effort, annually. If you want to go to, for example, country music, you should come to Cupertino in Silicon Valley, because Silicon Valley is a little bit lack on the cultural side. So if we can do it that way, and then I think that's our job as this elected official to look into it and put the money into it and then make it work. Then you will be a signature event every year. So everybody come to Silicon Valley, there's no, and they have to come to Cupertino for this. And then that's what I'm looking at it. And then so Memorial Park, to me, look at the situation, it's a great opportunity for us to do it if we do it right. And then I would like to see more focus on getting a multi-story and then performing art, everything together. Even if we need it, we can put a swimming pool on top of the top story of the building, and then that will be outdoor swimming pool too. Okay, so if that's the case, then just let's look into that and see what kind of money we have to come out with it, and then what kind of effort we can do, and then it will be a really a good facility for any kind of event that we would like to see this city has in the future, and that's what I have in mind. And in that sense, I'm willing to spend money on it to make it work. Okay. Okay. Thanks very much, Councilmember Chang. Vice Mayor Sinks, questions and comments.
Thank you. So, what does Cupertino want to be known for? I agree with Barry. There's a lot of life in the various festivals, the various cultures that we have throughout the year, and I think we have a lot of them, and we're proud. We're drawing from all over the South Bay on these festivals, and we could do a lot better on entertainment. I think, well, let me just keep going with general comments. I think being known as a city that is working to reverse the 50s idea that we had to have little backwaters and dead ends that make the city hard to navigate for walkers and bikers. I think all the work we're doing on our bike trails and our walking trails, I'd like to have the city be known for excellent access from where people live to parks and to green spaces and to nature. So I think that's all really important. I think our residents are looking for access to sports facilities, and those don't necessarily have to be at city facilities. They can be in places where we partner and share, or where the city, frankly, the city doesn't have to own all the pools in the city, right? You can become a Y member, as one in the public said, or you can go over to DACA and you can get in the pool, I guess it's early in the morning, and go for lap swimming. So in general, on Memorial Park, I respect the majority opinion of the Parks and Rec Commission overall. I generally concur with them. I would say that I've been to a number of the summer events at the Amphitheater. They're well used, but the space is very inefficient. You're sitting on the hillside and it's really awkward. The steps that we have are so wide that they take up a lot of space without allowing us to efficiently utilize that space. And I think it's well enough used in the summertime that we ought to have some summer festivals, and I would like to see, as the commission did, seeing that center redone, and maybe we improve the backstage to allow props to be stored and other things for some of these productions to make it a little easier on the companies that we would invite in. For water feature there, I really you know, every time I come here where those fountains are on, there are kids playing. It's just a delight. And I think a water feature that is designed specifically not to attract geese, which cause various problems, right? Kids are afraid of the geese. They defecate. They make the park experience less attractive. And so I think an interactive water feature, it doesn't have to be exactly this, but I know this would be popular if we produced a second one in Memorial Park. I think that's a great idea. I don't feel particularly attached to that gazebo there. I'm not sure who does, but it might be worth asking if that's something I don't know, maybe it has great historic value, or I don't understand the history of it. I guess I'd like to have somebody explain to me why that, I mean, is that a beloved feature in the city? I'm not sure, right? Maybe it is. So for anybody out there watching, I love your gazebo, but would you rather have something else, I guess would be my question. Because it's like this closed building, right, that you can't go in or you can walk around.
It is actually rentable.
It's rentable?
Yeah.
Does anybody ever rent it?
All the girls who want to get married in their bridal dress,
Does anybody ever rent it?
What are you talking
Oh,
about?
yeah, it used to be rather popular when we had water. But
I
now
see.
that we
Now-
don't have the water, it's not a very
I
attractive
see.
sight. But we used to have weddings
Okay.
there.
Well, okay, so then I support the gazebo
And
with a
it-
more attractive surrounding, right? I mean, fine. We
Yes,
do need places for that too in the city.
Yes, and with regards to your historical question, I believe, Gail, help me on this, but it was moved there, I think it was it the Lions Club that had that, or?
Yeah.
I know the Rotary Club spent some
yes,
time painting it or something.
Yeah, there was a donation, and the trim on it is historic.
Historic.
Yes, it's from the parish house.
Parish house, somebody's parish. Some church's parish, someplace else.
Enoch Parish.
Huh?
The Enoch Parish home. The trim was from their home, is my understanding, and it's a historical artifact.
Okay, well then, it's definitely a keeper, I guess, right? It's something the Parks and Rec Commission didn't talk about, but I wanted to at least bring it up, and I think I got most of an answer there. So, pools. I, like Jean, think that, we don't need to do everything in the city. With all those pools, I've heard over time the YMCA was interested in finding a larger space. Let's say that happened, right? They could come to the council and ask us to develop homes there, but it also may be that if they wanted to find a place with a bigger location, we could acquire that site as more green area for the city, which is, it's a couple blocks away, right? But we know we have a lot of multifamily housing there. It could be an amenity for the city, and we could thereby get a pool, an indoor pool. It's a very nice pool. It's not that old. So I think it would be interesting to ask the YMCA what their long-term strategic plans are, because I think they've been working for a while. And I know the preliminary plan they had like a decade ago to look at acquiring property. Excuse me, sir, can you take your conversation outside? Thank you. I know that a decade ago, the Y was talking about trying to relocate to what's now Main Street, and that didn't work out. There were a bunch of reasons for that. But I think they may still be trying to do so in order to expand. So I think we should talk to them. I respect the idea that Rancho Rinconada may not be the right place, but I'd love to have a pool on the east side as well. And I really don't consider Memorial Park particularly central in the city, honestly. So maybe there's a way to do something, but I'm not sure Memorial Park is the right place. Okay. I think we ought to look at making the pool at Blackberry Farm a year-round endeavor. think it's a beautiful facility. We've invested so many millions of dollars. Not only our money, but the money of the water district in making that such an attractive corridor. I mean, walking around there, you walk up and down, and on any afternoon, there were people picnicking there. There were kids playing on the bocce fields this weekend. There were people walking up and down the creek, even that part that we, don't maintain very well, right along the creek bed. There were, as I said, 84 people inside the fence that I counted at the pool, paying $8 to $10 a head to enjoy that facility with a beautiful green lawn. I think it's a great investment, and I don't really see intensifying someplace else, especially a place where we're already parking challenged, right? Because, we just want another pool. It's like, what about the facilities we already have in town, right? So I think we ought to be thinking a little more creatively about how to provide the pools. Likewise, a performing arts center. I consider Memorial Park, particularly in the evening hours where you'd like to have theater, except for the amphitheater use, which I think is covered in the summertime with an improved amphitheater. I think the Performing Arts Center ought to go someplace else. If it works out in Valco, that would be great. But I think, any place in Memorial Park is frankly too passive. I'd like to see a theater where we have active use, dining, restaurants, where we really have an evening destination, and Memorial Park isn't it, except for that special use in the summertime. But I'd like, if we're being known as a city that is offering, many cultures, festivals during the day, and, performance arts during the evening, music, and all these things that our kids say they want, I think then, we do want a year-round facility, which means it's got to be indoor, and it's got to be substantial, sort of like what Mountain View has, the Mountain View Center for the Performing Arts, a 600-person theater that's filled 5.5 times a week, on average, every week of the year. Why shouldn't we have one of those in Cupertino? And a second stage where you can supplement that. You can actually have, up in Mountain View, you can have 2 events going on in the same time. I think our city has grown enough and has become so interesting, right, in all the people that have come here from all over the world, and we need to have more venues in active areas where people can come and have a night out in our city. And we're really lacking that today, in my view. I know all these don't relate specifically to Memorial Park, except that you've brought the question up by asking, do you want it in Memorial Park? And I would say, generally I like the third plan, but I'm not convinced about the Aquatic Center, and I'm not convinced about the theater at that particular location, although I'm supportive. I would support, given the demand I see for basketball and the lack of gym space, I could support a gym with a bunch of basketball courts. It seems like that's popular. I would support outdoor, what did you call it?
Multi-purpose courts?
Multi-purpose courts outdoor, so we'd have some flexibility there. And I would support, or maybe dedicated basketball outside, practice things as the schools have. And then I would also support an indoor gymnasium that might host several simultaneous games, because it seems like that's really lacking. Let's see. I think those are my comments.
Mayor, can I add one item I mentioned?
Sure, feel free.
Since both council members Sharp and Vice Mayor mentioned about the access, I think the access is the key. Okay, we cannot make a park unless we have the space. So how do we access to it? I remember last time at the last meeting I mentioned about we have Rancho San Antonio, we have Fremont Older space, open space, and then especially Fremont Older space, you can get access from Rainbow Drive or Rainbow Court, or you can get it from Seventh Spring, the end, or you can get on to Regnar Road, and or you can get on to where I used to live, on Canyon View Circle. It's once you get up there, you can walk, you have all the nature you want, you have the Narrow Trail, but it's very hard to get to it for the city of Cupertino. And the reason I got onto it is because I used to run marathons, so that was my training route, so I can just run to it, okay? But I doubt that many people can do it. And then especially Regnar Road, it's very hard to find a parking space there to get onto that fire truck trail and then get onto Fremont Older. So if we can get some kind of design with providing the small shuttle bus service, circle around the east side or the entire city, people can just hop onto the bus and go to, and then go to the entrance area of each trail, and then they can just go. And then when they're done, they can just come back, either walk down or they can just take the bus back. Then you have the access. Then you don't need to, because if you're talking about east side, really there's limited space. Unless they want to sell their house, and then you have to collectively put a couple houses together to make it work. Otherwise, and that will be hard. That's really hard. For now, I think an easier way is just if we can provide the access, the bus service, a small shuttle service, and then people can just hop onto it and just go to it. And that's not going to cost that much money either in comparison to acquire a piece of house or two couple house to assemble them together. I think that's much more easier and reasonable, and then much more enjoyable. That's what I can. On the Canyon View Circle, find out why there's a fire truck there, but then the owner there doesn't allow anybody to get access to it. Because one time we ran over there, the guy was saying, the next time you come, I will shot you. I will shoot you right there. Okay, so we all got scared. Okay, but we thought that's public road. I think a fire truck access trail should be a public road, but the owner just put a simple gate, and you can still walk through it. And so we ran through it. He was really mad. And if they don't have the right, then the city should tell them to remove those gate. Those barrier, and then put a note that's public trail.
Interesting. Okay. Any further comments from council at this point? Councilmember Vaidyanathan.
Yeah. I was only asking questions. I didn't give my comments. So as far as cricket is concerned, it sounds like an echo. I've been saying it for a very long time. If we can find room for a regulation-sized cricket field, we find a community one, and we also approach De Anza College. What are they doing with repurposing their temporary parking structures that they had while Flint was being renovated? There are many, many options. I would like to look into that. And as far as you also had a question about what we'd like to be known for, we are almost an international community here, so I think we need to be known for a little bit of everything. That's what makes a salad bowl exciting. Just one spice in a bowl by itself is not relished. Thank you.
Great. Any further comments from Councilmember Shar for Vice Mayor Sings at this point? Well, let me just maybe try to recap some of this. I think for your first question with regard to what do we want to be known for, I think we're known for quite a few things, but there are a number of things that we're starting to do very well. It would be good to see those accentuated over time. And as Vice Mayor Sinks mentioned, there are a number of festivals, as Councilmember Vaidyanathan just mentioned. We're a very eclectic community, and I would encourage us to go forward and try to do those things that we're doing pretty well and accentuate those types of facilities. There does seem to be a potential bit of a division on the aquatics question. I wouldn't say that it's necessary to put a full-fledged 8-lane, 50-meter international pool in there, but I don't think it would hurt to evaluate those options, and to create a relatively wide envelope, starting with something relatively smaller, like what used to be at the Sports Center, going up to potentially something along the lines of 4 or 6 lanes and 25 yards, and going to the maximum size envelope of something that's competitive and usable for full competitive purposes. I think there is appetite, but I think also that you're looking for feedback with regard to whether there is some kind of sense on council, perhaps not necessarily majority sense at this point, but some kind of support for it to go forward for further evaluation. So I did hear that support. With regard to the performing arts space, even though Vice Mayor Sink says that he would rather not see it in Memorial Park, I think it might not be a bad idea to take a look at what, along the same lines, to take a look at that facility and see, if we were looking at it as an option to deliver to the community, what would we be looking at with regard to, the costs and the design and so on and so forth. So I would support that, as I would support going forward with looking at the cricket question and identifying particular fields that we might be able to use. I think there are also potential synergies with our school districts on that issue as well. And so if you could, in your outreach, because Councilmember Vice Mayor Sinks did ask for outreach to the schools, as well as possibly Rancho Rinconada and the other facilities for pools, if you could, in your outreach there and follow up to this meeting, also include in that cricket for namely the schools. I can't think of any other entities that would have sufficient amounts of space to cover that kind of facility in Cupertino. I think that would be a really good, useful follow-up exercise. We recently had a very good polling system. It's pretty novel with regard to another item. I would ask that you work with the city manager's office to perhaps create 5 to 10 questions based upon our feedback here that could be potentially used at a relatively low cost to the city in terms of getting some follow-up feedback based upon what we're kind of curious about. So what is the appetite for these various items in Cupertino? I heard cricket field discussed. I heard the pool discussed, performing arts center. But if there's interest in finding out a little bit more, and these survey results from 2016, not only are they a couple of years old right now, they were also not used. They were not garnered using our current capabilities. And so this recent poll we conducted took literally 2 days. I think the go button was pushed on it, and on day 4 or 5, it was completed. Something like day 9 or 10, we had the full-fledged results. And so I think that's a pretty good mechanism to use going forward. I had a question about the all-inclusive playground. I think Cupertino should have one of those. They're great playgrounds. I've taken my kids 3 and 6 to a number of them, mainly the Magical Bridge in Palo Alto, and then there's one downtown that I think was brought forward by the San Jose Rotary Club. And so our Parks and Recreation Commission identified Jollyman Park unanimously as the park that would be best suited for an all-inclusive playground. Why did they come to that recommendation as opposed to any of the other parks?
There was a study that was pretty detailed, and it ranked the potential sites on quite a range of criteria. It ranked each of the criteria and then weighted each of the criteria and came out with weighted rankings. And the top 3 sites were the 2 Jollyman sites and a site at Memorial Park. But with further qualitative feedback from the consultant team, there was a concern that the Memorial Park site would not be an inviting place for sensitive users of an inclusive play area, given the quantity of special events that occur at Memorial Park and the number of participants and how busy that site can be, and that the potential inclusive play area would be surrounded on a couple of sides by festival activities, and that at those times, and perhaps even during amphitheater performances and so on, the noise and activity level would be uncomfortable potentially for sensitive visitors. So with that thought, and with also the thought that there would very likely be a need for additional parking just for the inclusive play area, that it could not be served by the adjacent senior center parking area, that would add quite a bit of cost and possibly structured parking. Those considerations made the commission feel that that site was less desirable, but the other two remained very good candidates, both at Jellingman Park.
Okay, understood. And those are great parks, as mentioned previously. I guess my final question has to do with process. What are we looking at with regard to the rest of the Parks and Rec master plan process? How many more times are we looking to come back to the council, outreach to the community, possibly going through the commission? Just a general time frame so that as we conclude, our public has an idea of what we're looking at in the future on this item.
It was our hope at this point to receive the feedback that we needed to go ahead and develop the capital projects list costing and an administrative draft plan to move rapidly into those procedures. What we need in order to have an adopted plan is to go through is the CEQA process, and we would like to, if at all possible, wrap up the plan ideally by the end of this year if we can. It may carry forward into the next year depending on the CEQA timing. Because of that, we were not anticipating doing further outreach here at this juncture, but waiting until we had a draft plan in hand and then bringing it back out to the public. If you would like us to do additional outreach, that will slow the timeline down to do so.
I see. And so do you feel comfortable, based upon the feedback that you've heard from council tonight, to be able to conduct some of that outreach and come back in a relatively efficient manner? Essentially report out. There's been some appetite with regard to being able to report out in the evening when perhaps more people are present to hear the report. And we could even make it part of a regularly scheduled council meeting as well, with the understanding that perhaps a report out we can contain within half an hour, 45 minutes in a relatively near time frame schedule, and then you could proceed with the rest of your time. And I think that I don't think we're in any huge rush to get this done by a particular time, i.e. the end of the year. It's such a far-ranging issue that affects virtually every space and every person in the community on a long-term basis. And so, let's get it right, even if it's a matter of, maybe even 2 or 3 months.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thanks for that feedback.
Mayor, can I add one more item?
Of course, Councilmember Chang.
Another item I see what's lacking is a dance place, dance studio. Okay, I've been taking the dance class for more than about 10 years now. I find out when there's a festivity, people like to go out and dance. Okay, and then sometimes when I go to quite a lot of event, the whole room is packed and people are dancing, but they don't know how to dance. So and then it just hit each other. It's very annoying. Okay. If they follow, I take the class, so I know the so-called 9-0 dance. If you follow 9-0 dance, you won't hit each other, rarely. And then you can still accommodate a large number of people, okay? But most people don't take the class, so they don't know what the 9-0 dance is. So they just do go in the direction they want, and then when you have so packed and so many people, you just hit each other all the time. So if we have that, if we can put down, because dance studio, it doesn't cost that much money. Only the size, you have to be, for the international standard dance, you have to a certain size. If you meet that size, the only requirement is a mirror wall. They put the mirror at the wall, so when you dance, you can see how your movement is. And that's the only different, only thing you have to add on to it. So I think that's part of the art too. And then I know this area here, there's now Indian dance, I saw quite a few, Sunnyvale, Cupertino, they're all tiny, and then they have all these kids learning their traditional dance, Chinese, Indian, and all kind. Even some from the Eastern Europe, European. Their dance is different. Okay, but so if you can put that into consideration, I know it's not going to cost that much money, but it just have that additional flavor for it. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, thank you, Councilmember Chang. I will say that one of the events I really like to go to in the Bay Area, and I've started taking my family there as well, is the Ethnic Dance Festival that's held up at San Francisco every year. Given the fact that we're talking about a multi-level, potentially, facility at one of the parks, as well as a full-size gymnasium, indoor, possibly, it seems like that could be, designed pretty readily in order to accommodate what Councilmember Chang is talking about. And if we got some kind of civic-oriented performing arts space, like Vice Mayor Sinks really likes to envision at perhaps the Valco space. Maybe we could even pull a performance or two on that particular event down in the South Bay. But that's just a conjecture. At this point, do you feel like you have sufficient amounts of guidance to go forward for the next iteration? Or would you like us to perhaps pontificate on any other items at this time?
I think we do have good guidance and that we can go ahead and proceed with the capital projects list, conduct the additional outreach that you've requested to get feedback on that project list before we proceed with developing the plan.
Great, thanks so much, Cindy. And then Vice Mayor Sinks has his green light on, and so we'll give him the last word on this with Councilmember Vaidyanathan also having a request for a final comment there.
Well, just having listened to a couple of my colleagues, I'd like to support a couple of points. I would also support seeing what we can do about cricket, and I think a school could be a good venue. I also support the idea that help me out with the polling here. Was this people that self-selected exclusively into this?
Yes.
So I would also support the idea that given that we know now how to do polling in a week, I mean, yeah, you have to execute the contract, but David, I see you in the audience. Given that how long would it take us to execute a contract with the same vendor we used for the recent polling to ask some pertinent questions to make sure we're getting, the problem, of course, with self-selected surveys is you get the people that are paying attention and want to weigh in. But I'm a little, well, I would be eager to see what the average resident thinks on some of these key questions.
How fast could we execute a poll like the one we did earlier?
Assuming we had the questions, and it sounds like, we have questions, we'd have to translate them into a form that was easily digestible.
About 10 days.
About 10 days. I mean, I would support Darcy's thought that it might be worth taking that amount of time.
Sure.
To see. And I don't know that I'd be okay with it just, rather than scheduling yet another meeting, if it could be included at whatever next more formal hearings we have. I think we could develop the projects list in any case. I wouldn't want to hold that up. I would think this could be done in parallel, included to council and items of interest, and also presented as an information item at the next Parks and Rec Commission. Mm-hmm. So that would be my suggestion.
Sure.
Just so we get, right, we hear from the people that aren't necessarily the ones who, so maybe it has to be simplified to make it fit in length. But I think some look at these key questions would be in order. I'm not saying duplicate a lengthy survey. I'm saying take some essential questions.
Yeah, these are sure.
And just test and see if we really have representative results in the more lengthy surveys we've done. Does that make sense?
Personally, I think that makes perfect sense because of the fact also that this company is conducting some analytical modeling with regard to the potential error rate. Whereas I don't think we've necessarily done that in our outreach from a couple of years ago up till now with regard to the surveys. Mm-hmm. And so, I'd be 100% in support of your support of my suggestion. So thank you very much, Vice Mayor Sinks.
Finally, I support Barry's idea about more space for community. We do need more community meeting space. I've been pushing, if we did City Hall here, to make it more than we need so we could have more space here. It feels to me like teens might appreciate a teen center more here. I'd like teens to get more exercise. So, I like the idea of putting it sort of in the location it is, but if it isn't going to get used, I'm not a teen anymore, and what do I know? But, yeah, so. But I support Barry's idea of also, having that kind of space for, people who aren't performing, they're taking classes or whatever. I mean, if we got it inside of Valco and it became part of what FUHSD is doing with adult education, for example, I don't think the city necessarily has to program all these things. We have all these partner agencies that offer this. Deanza, right?
I'm sure the library would love to program it.
Yeah, right. So, right.
Right,
So,
excellent.
thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Sinks. And Councilmember Vaidyanathan, you had some final comments.
Regarding the survey that you mentioned and the questions that they would come up with, now we're going into the summer and schools are on break, so I would also hope that you could also be present in some form at all our festivals. If the Parks and Recs could have a booth, or even have some of our students participate, our teen commission participate in handing out flyers and getting public input from those who actually visit the festivals. You get a concentrated audience at all our festivals, and you'll have them all the way through September, if not further. And I guess you'll be able to bring back those results to us whenever we meet again.
Right. And Diwali is in early October this year.
That'll be in early October. So.
Okay, great.
So,
Councilmember Scharf.
I would also suggest setting up a table outside the library, especially now that the election is over. You're free to do that. But that gets tremendous use, and it's probably a high percentage of Cupertino residents, whereas the festivals tend to draw a lot of people from outside the community. So we definitely, if we don't think our current survey is representative, I mean, I guess we can keep doing surveys until we get the answers we want, but we really should do a survey that asks the questions of our actual residents. I think you pointed out that one of the meetings, the average age was what, 65 something, or?
Last meeting, yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably not representative. Just as having this meeting here today at 3 o'clock is probably a really bad idea if we want to get input from residents. Thank you.
So I don't feel like we need to be exhaustive and, survey in various places. I think a quick polling of random, I mean, we've done so much of this already. I'm okay with just getting a survey out to a random sample and seeing how it compares with all this work that you've already done. So, I mean, just that would be my preference. Short, doesn't take much effort, goes in parallel with developing the capital projects list. Because, quite frankly, we started talking about parks when I joined this council, and we haven't done very much. We haven't done that much, and waiting another umpteen months isn't my idea of making progress. Thanks.
Agreed. Here.
Councilmember
Chang.
I don't think we need to do this survey till find out the result we want. I don't think that's the way. Okay,
no,
I think as a leader, we have to lead, and we have to see, as I say earlier, and then everybody mentioned about, what do we want for this city to be known for? What do we want? How do we accomplish? And then for the park and recreation, and that's a cultural thing. Is a main part here. It's a very big item in my opinion, especially in the tech center of the world. This is what we are lacking in the entire region. So if we can focus on more cultural, also including the diversity here, I mean, that would be a great event, and that's what we do. As a leader, what we need. And if we don't do it right, I mean, I can guarantee you have a full house of the people show up here just yelling and screaming at us. Okay, but I mean, I think if we do it right, people will appreciate it. And even though not many people show up, 20 years, 30 years down the road, people say, yeah, that council did a good job. And then that's why people, city of Cupertino is known for not only for Apple here, for also for certain of the event we did, or certain of the facility we provide. So that's very important, in my opinion.
Okay, very good.
And your first question can be, are you a Cupertino resident? That would help.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
One of the survey questions regarding residency. Thank you, Councilmember Chang and Councilmember Vaidyanathan. With that, we will adjourn the meeting. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is June 19th, the second meeting of June for the City Council. Thanks very much, Cindy. Thanks very much, Gail. And we'll see you next time. Take care.